You've said that philosophy becomes more dangerous in difficult times. What do you mean by that?
Interestingly, I think I mean two things by that. And I think firstly, I should clarify when I say philosophy, I sort of mean in a very traditional sense, just thinking, ideation. And that could be reconsidering our notions of self in a very traditional sense, which we consider philosophy, or that could be like technological innovation. I think it's important to recognize all of these as philosophy so that we can not question whether it's important to promote thought. I think the other thing I should clarify is when I say difficult times, I mean times when nothing is growing, and so the risk for real conflict is much greater because people are incentivized to fight over the things which already exist. I think when times are not difficult, the people with the greatest power are usually the people who are very creative, generating a lot, and that really requires ideation or philosophy of some sort. I think when times become stagnant, the important, successful people become the people who are very good at protecting their own pieces of the pie and taking others. I think that those people have to be very opposed to any sort of thinking that could restructure society, our conventions about who should succeed. And so, firstly, I mean by that it becomes much more dangerous for a person to think deeply and question during a time when the important people are those concerned with making sure no one rocks the boat. You know, one example of this would be like Socrates and his execution, because everyone was happy enough to sit through his questions before there was war and poverty and distress, and afterwards it just became too dangerous. The other thing I mean by that is that the consequences of thinking deeply carry much greater potential for real catastrophe when everyone is desperate. So, like, for example, the Communist Manifesto was probably much more dangerous during early 1900s Russia than it was during the 1848 revolutions, because I think people were in much worse shape. And desperate people are very willing to dive into anything new that might bring the future without fully calculating whatever the consequences or risks might be. So it is both more dangerous for a person to have creative ideas, and those ideas are more dangerous when times are tough.
And by dangerous, you mean it challenges the people with power who want to maintain that power in times of stagnation, when there's not much growth, innovation, creativity, all that kind of stuff.
Right. And we know that if nothing new is created, people have promises that they've made about what will be paid to whom, what debt structure is. The only possibility, if stagnation lasts for long enough, is really some kind of great conflict, great war, because people have to take from others to make good on their own promises. So we know that by denying any sort of grand ideation, we are accepting that there will be some kind of great catastrophe. And so we have to understand that philosophy is the most important when we've seen too much stagnation for too long. It is also very dangerous, and it's dangerous for the people who are doing it, and it's dangerous for the people who believe it, but it's kind of our only way out ever.
And again, by philosophy, you mean the bigger, so it's not academic philosophy or this kind of games played in the space of just like moral philosophy and all those metaphysics, all that kind of stuff. You mean just thinking deeply about this world, thinking from first principles. I think your like Twitter line involves something about like
trying to piece everything together from first principles.
So that's fundamentally what being philosophical about this world is, and that's where the people who are thinking deeply about this world are the ones who are the catalyst of this growth in society and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that the real implication of moral philosophy uh, can be something that most would consider like a real political implication. So I think all philosophy really ties together because there has to be some sort of grand structure to all thought and how it relates.